Welcome to today's episode of What to Say and How to Say It. Today, we're going to be digging into authentic relationships. And that sounds like the thing that everybody says they want. Oh, I just want it. I want an authentic relationship. I want him to be real with me or her to be authentic. And then it's like, yeah, what does that even mean? I'm with our favorite licensed professional counselor, Kyle Hargrove. And he and I are going to dig into this topic today and sort out what does it actually mean to be authentic? Like, I think we should start there. And then there's some variables that impact this. And I want to encourage you to just be aware of these things as you're trying to create intimacy, because you cannot have an intimate relationship with somebody where there's no authenticity. Before we get deeply into this, though, I want to make sure you've been over to our website, greaterimpact.org, and you've taken our marriage assessment. It will tell you what level of hot mess you're in or whether or not you should be joining us in ministry. Like, no joke, go check it out, greaterimpact.org. And at the very least, you'll get a free downloadable PDF on how to stop walking on eggshells. So, so Kyle, you work with people, I do too. This authenticity thing, albeit hard to say at the moment, is actually a topic that comes up pretty frequently.
It is. And I can't help but listen to you talk about, making a trip over to the website and say, find out what kind of a hot mess you're in. And I could pretty much identify that by if I can find out what kind of a hot mess I are. Because if I
Yeah.
know what I are, I know what I'm in because I usually bring it. So, but yeah, to the question of the day, uh, it's something that I don't know if I hear it more and more or if I'm just in tune to it for some reason. All of a sudden, maybe I need to look into that. But uh, people are saying, I just want my marriage, my relationship, or what my future relationships, whatever the case might be. I just want them to be authentic, or I want them to be, centered around authenticity. Um, and I don't know, honestly. I'm not sitting here super prepared or anything. And as we kind of decided to bring this topic to the forefront today, it started my brain spinning a bit about what do people mean when they say that?
Mhm.
What does it mean? And um, I don't know that I've been asking that question directly enough, and I've already made a commitment. The next time somebody asks the question, they're probably going to regret it, because I'm going to be singing some questions at them like, "What does that look like to you?" And they're
Mhm.
not probably going to be prepared to answer it in a way that's going to be helpful therapeutically.
Mhm.
I think the reason for that is it's just kind of one of those things we say, like we were taught when we were tiny: tell your brother you're sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Good. Everybody's good now. We go on, and then as 45 and 50-year olds, we still believe that telling someone we're sorry is not only an apology, but a promise to do differently. And
Yeah.
it's not, it's still
It's
not.
not. Yeah.
And so I think an authentic relationship is just one of those things, that girls talk about when they're 15 and they talk about the men they're going to marry and how this is going to happen and the house with the picket fence and the station wagon with the wood panels and 3.2 children and
The golden
all this
retriever.
stuff and a golden retriever and the authentic relationship with my husband.
Yeah.
How often do we talk about that? What
Yeah.
does that actually mean?
It's interesting. Last night I had a coaching group, and one of the things that one of the women brought to explore was she wanted to be able to be herself and be real in her relationship, that she wanted to show up without having to worry about the words that she said, that she wanted to just let it all hang out and be able to be who she really was. And I thought, and I didn't say this, but my thought was, oh goodness, no. Like, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scripture tells us the heart of man is evil, well, so is mine. And I like, there's a reason we wear clothing. Nobody should be hanging out. Like, that's not just about that. It's no, we need guardrails and politeness and behavior and oh my goodness. So, I mean, we landed in a good spot, but I get the desire that she has. She wants to not be stressed. She wants to have
Mm.
peace and feel comfort and safety. And and that's a journey that people take in relationships. Like they don't we don't yeah, well, we all follow Christ and then so therefore we can be authentic. Yeah, hey, hold up. Let's talk about that for a second. Like what does that even mean? I don't think people really think about what it is they're saying, to your point.
Yeah, and if they say I want that authenticity, authentic, here we go again. I want that authenticity as long as it's safe and secure and so forth. Is it is as long as it is, or in spite of the fact that it's never going to be completely safe. It's never going to
Right.
be uh, two perfect individuals embracing in the perfect marriage and happy ever after. It's never going to be that.
Mhm.
And if we have that expectation, then authenticity is not a possibility. I think I messed it up again. Authenticity is not a possibility. So
Right.
we have to understand that we have to give and we have to take risks um, within the realm of imperfection.
Yes.
And know that not only does my partner have characteristics and personality things and so forth that are probably never going to be perfect to me, I possess the same things going in the
Yep.
other direction.
Yep. Yeah. There, but for the grace of God, go I. It just looks a little different.
Hmm.
Yeah. We're both driving each other a little bit crazy. That's how that works. Yeah.
Well,
So
I did
go
hit
ahead.
the Google for a second ago, right before we started, and just kind of sometimes it just pays to look up the definition of a word.
Yes. Yeah.
And and as I looked up authentic, I found a common thread throughout all of the dictionaries, and that has to do with something's origin,
Oh.
and that its origin is undisputed.
Hmm.
Ooh. I don't know how many people I want to look into my origin because
Yeah.
the only thing undisputed about it is that it is faulty and sometimes, you know, it's dirty in there and it's not what I want it to be, much less what I can expect someone else to see from me.
Hmm. Yeah, that's
And
interesting.
and I know in the somewhere in the synoptic gospels, I think it's in Luke, where Jesus talks about, he's talking to the disciples, I think, and he says there's nothing hidden that's not going to be revealed.
Yeah.
Um, there's nothing concealed that won't be, I think the word maybe he used was disclosed.
Hmm.
And this is where he draws the distinction between dark and daylight. And I kind of put this, in an interpretation in 2024 of, do you want the things you've whispered to others to be in 10-inch headlines
Oof.
in the news?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he said clearly what you've whispered is going to be proclaimed from the rooftops.
Hmm.
So authenticity begins not in what I see in someone else, but in what I'm willing to work on inside myself.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I made somebody cry today. I hate that. It happens about 3 times a week. Um, she was inquiring about coaching and strength and dignity and stuff. And yeah, it's always the same situation. They talk a lot about their spouse and what they are and are not doing that's unhealthy, and all the things. And I'm like, and I listen and I have some massive amount of empathy because I've done that, right? And then I ask the hard question. It's like, so what is it in you that's keeping you focused on his behavior and keeping you from doing something different than what you're doing about it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are you continuing to show up the way that you have been? She's like, well, he just needs to change. I said, he's clearly not. So what do you want to do differently here? And she goes, well, I don't even know. And then she started to cry. And I said, "And that's
Mm-hmm.
it right there, right? Like you don't know." She goes, I just want to be friends with him. And I don't know how, like he just destroys everything I give him. I'm like, okay, well, that's where you are now. maybe. And yeah, but let's take a look at how you got there and then let's talk about something hopeful. She goes, I just want to be friends. I'm like, okay, well, maybe we need to sort some other things out before you can create that. And when you look at what does everybody want? They want to be able to be themselves, not be judged, and talk about their fears and their concerns without retribution, without it being held against them or viewed as weakness. They want safety in relationships. And to be able to do that for somebody else or have that created for you, you have to create that for yourself. To your point, we have to look at ourselves and go, what is it in me that's keeping me focused on somebody else rescuing me, taking care of me? Why am I a victim here? And nobody likes that question. Like, I'm surprised we have any business at all. Like, I don't know why anybody works with us except the outcomes are awesome because I ask them all those things. What's got you stuck as a victim here? And people don't know, and that's really, really normal. But there's stuff in there, and you as a therapist probably dig into that more than we do as coaches. We do some of that work with prayer, but we let the Lord sort it. I don't need to look at all of that. But people come to you like, what is that stuff?
Yeah.
What is the sludge that's keeping us stuck and I can't be authentic with myself? What do you see as you poke around in that?
I see that, and I can't not see it. Yeah, if your eyes are open right now in 2024, almost 2025, it's so thick around us. The idea that we don't have to. It's almost like I don't have to be critical of me. I don't have to identify in me things that are going to be beneficial to others if I can work on it and make a few tuning adjustments to it. Instead, we're told you are just fine exactly the way you are. And anybody that says any different is abusing you.
Mhm.
Okay. And that makes you a victim. And
Yeah.
what do we do for true victims? We provide everything for them that they need because they can't do it for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That turns into, that takes the original diagnosis of victimitis and it turns it into the secondary diagnosis of entitleitis.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so we have this entitled attitude, not just about the world around us and the things that we need that we don't want to work hard for, but we have the entitled attitude that other people in relationships with us should meet our needs and see us where we are instead of us doing the same for them and with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is something that, is an almost daily question, if not with the client themselves, maybe with somebody that they're working closely with, in a relationship. And I don't understand why it seems to be more of a badge of honor to be seen as a victim than it does to be seen as somebody who worked themselves past that.
Yeah. I know, right? And I think there's this longing that we have within us to be loved. And we are. We absolutely are. God loves us, hands down. Even in our
Mhm.
ugliest moment, He still loves us. And if you go back to, was it Jacob and Esau? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Scripture says the Lord
fighting for the
loved,
love of their father.
yeah, the Lord loved, or I'm sorry, no, it's the Lord. The Lord loved Jacob, but He loved, and they transcribed it hated, but He hated Esau. But what's really true is that word means He loved him less.
Hmm.
The way that English is, like, we don't know what that really means, so that's what they did. But he loved him. He still loved him. He loved him less. But you don't know that when you look at English translations of that. If you go back to the original text, you see that because God, that's who God is. He loves you. Period. End of conversation. That's who God is. He loves. That's it. And so as we look at, well, you're just fine the way you are. It's like, Okay, that's a demonized version of you're loved.
Yeah.
So it's true that we're loved, but out of being loved like that, our natural response should be to be the best that we could ever be and serve with all our might as doing that work for the Lord Himself because we are out of gratitude. Somehow that message is not out there. Like we're just completely missing the whole thing. Um, and then we end up with this culture that we have right now that's just super sad.
Yeah. And I get, not all the time, but I occasionally am accused of being hyper focused on fear. Not necessarily my own, although I do have a few. Um, but that the reason that people are hesitant and won't seek to be, like you said, that love that is given to us freely, whether we ask for it or not, ought to motivate us to do and be everything we can possibly be. But the thing that gets in the way is, in my opinion, most
Hmm.
frequently fear.
Yeah.
Fear of what? Where do we start?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Well,
just being a less than, or not capable of, or not important enough, or not good enough, or not impressive enough, or not pretty enough, or not smart enough. Fill in the blank. I've failed before. Yeah, and you'll fail again.
yeah. Yeah.
But where do we you know where do we just stop trying? Where do we stop making the effort to overcome those fears and to
Hmm.
help to create wonderful experiences in our life, because those take hard work and dedication and consistency.
Well, that's the whole core of authenticity is, are you willing to take risk? Do the thing you're scared of doing. Maybe you don't have to do it at like if you have a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 is, I'm going to share the deepest, most personal thing that if you didn't handle this well, you could destroy my heart and I won't recover for 6 months.
Yeah.
One being, I don't care about this much at all. I'm just checking you out and seeing if you're trustworthy. Like when we have like, and this is a common thing with relationships that are broken and the marriage intensive. I'm working with people all the time on how do you build trust in your relationship, and part of that trust building is taking a risk, bringing something authentic to the relationship. You don't start with like a level 8. You start with like a 2 or 3 and see how your spouse handles it. And then it's an opportunity for feedback like, oh, thank you so much. It meant so much to me that you listened and you were totally on my side. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And hug, kiss, all of that. You'll get more of that, right? But if they don't handle it well, and it's like, hold up, I'm not, okay, I wanted to talk to you about this. Doesn't seem like it's safe. I'm done here. And they're
Mhm.
like, what do you mean? Well, I want us to have a safe relationship. You're criticizing me, and that's not what I need right now. I asked you if you were open to listening to something that was important to me and being on my side about it. You said yes, and you're doing this instead. So I'm done. And then you try that again in 3 months because they learn from that,
Mhm.
right? But you've got to keep getting back up. We never learn to walk unless we do that. Now, granted, you don't have that far to fall when you're 18 months old, but it is a little riskier, but you can be intentional and intelligent about it. But you've got to take the risks.
You do, and taking risks is a thing. Are things taking risks are things we do every day, and we think nothing of it if it's something we're comfortable with and have done before, and it's worked for us more often than not, and so on and so forth. But what we're unwilling, it seems, to do at times is to take the risks that are not equated with driving a car, or if your job is in sales, approaching someone who may or may not buy what you have to sell.
Hmm.
When it becomes more interpersonal, it seems like taking those risks is really a struggle.
Yeah.
And it's where we tend to balk and listen to the fear.
Hmm.
We're listening louder to the fear than we are to the possibilities. Now, I think I've shared with you before my take on risk taking, and that is, can I, if I move forward with this risk, can I live with the consequences if the
Mhm.
risk doesn't pay off?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yeah, I can live with that, then it's a risk you probably can or maybe even want to take. But if the answer is no, I absolutely cannot live with the negative consequence if the risk doesn't pay off, regardless of what it might pay off if it wins. Right now, I can't live with it not doing it. Then that's probably a risk you want to avoid.
Yeah.
And then to work your way back down systematically to a place that says, okay, how much can I stand?
Yeah.
And neither of us are gamblers, but big gamblers probably. But if you were to go to a casino and you say, I have a budget, I will pay $100 for my entertainment tonight. And if I come home with nothing, it's okay. I was entertained. I had fun. This people watching is amazing, blah, 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 blah. And that's okay. But if I take $1,000 and I lose that, then I've blown my budget and can't pay my car payment.
Hmm.
And then I'm in trouble. That's a risk I don't take.
Yep.
If I do, then, I'm creating new problems based on the potential promise of a big win. Risks don't always pay off. And when we take them and they don't, if we say the universe is lined up against me, if we say it just nothing seems to work out for me, maybe it's because we're not doing the groundwork before we decide which choices to make.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
sounds like a lot of work, and it is.
Yeah, it is. It totally is. Yeah. One of the reasons I ride horses in a lesson for 2 hours a week at the same, it's a 2 hour lesson, right? Our horse trainer is constantly pushing us outside our comfort zone. We take risks every single time we ride, and it's a dangerous activity. I mean, one of my best friends broke her ankle 2 weeks ago. And she's the best rider at the barn. Like she's incredible. But it's risky. You never know. Even if you're a great rider and you have a great horse, mud and things happen, right? And you can't predict it. Deer come out of nowhere. Like we came up to the field one day and there was a bunch of buzzards and a red-tailed hawk sitting on all the fence posts, and the horses were like, "What's going on?" It was eerie and ominous and weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they all took flight at the same time, and yes, 100% of the horses gave a startle. It was weird, but you just never know. And I think within us, like part of the reason I do that is because I know that if I'm not pushing myself outside my comfort zone on the regular, I'm going to shrivel up as a human.
Yep.
Yep. So I go do this once a week for the lesson and then two other times a week. And it's moderately dangerous for sure. But then there's other places and here's the thing that I think is probably the worst thing is what kind of risks am I taking with myself? Are they wise ones? Or are they stupid? Right? Because you don't want to make stupid risks. You want to take wise risks with yourself. And you made that point earlier about, talking to people about, your business and doing sales and stuff. And, we're a ministry, but we do some of that activity. That's way outside my comfort zone, you know, to talk to people on the phone when they're struggling and then make a recommendation based on what we know works. That might sound like it should be super easy for me. It's not.
Hmm.
And I have to do it multiple times a week. And you'd think by now I'd be over it, but it still feels kind of risky to me, especially when I got both couples or both
Yeah.
people that, I get them both on the Zoom call and you just never know. Like, what horse is this that we're riding? Like, is it a Bronco? Is it, I don't know. I have no idea. But I don't think like, I wouldn't have any confidence if I wasn't constantly putting myself in position in situations relationally with strangers, number one, and then number two, I do it in my relationships all the time. Um, and have grown to the point where it doesn't cost me anything. It used to, like 2 decades ago, it would cost me something if I put myself out there and got, not a perfect response back. And you never know what you're going to get back from other people. Everybody's hangry or something. But now it doesn't bother me at all. I don't. it doesn't affect my identity or anything like that. But it took a while to get to that point. But I think part of this equation has to be, am I authentic with myself? Will I tell myself, hey, Nina, you know that thing where you struggle with organizational skills? Yeah, you're going to really mess up greater impact if you don't get it together. Ask for help. That was really hard for me to do this year, but I did. Humbling. Oh my gosh. Like people on my team had no idea how bad I was until they learned how bad it was. And I'm getting more organized. And as a result, we're doing better things. So it impacts everything. But could I be humble? Could I be vulnerable with myself in that space? And then others. Like, it's a huge deal.
That's harder to do than I think most of us think. If you want to be authentic to the point that your origin is undisputed,
Hmm.
that you are not a genuine reproduction, which you ever seen a painting or something that says genuine reproduction?
Yeah. It's like, what does that even mean?
What?
What?
Yeah. Um, it requires that, you know, and I think it starts with the ability or the willingness to take a risk, but you can't do that. You can't take risk, or you don't want to take risk. Let me just say this about that. You don't want to take risk with things you're not sure about.
Hmm.
And if you haven't done the internal work, and I'm going to tell you right now, if anybody wants to be challenged, is just to sit with themselves and a pen and a pad for a weekend and think through your life. Think through not necessarily every moment of it. That would take more than a weekend, but um, to think through your relationships, the good parts, the bad parts, the parts that seem to come up more often than not that are difficult to deal with. What's mine? What's somebody else's? And come down to this list of things that you found out about yourself. How many of those things can you say that you're genuine about
Hmm.
compared to the things that you make an excuse for yourself about?
Yeah.
Because we all do it. Let's not, sit on any high horse here. We all do it. We have places where we struggle and we fail sometimes. And so we say to ourselves, well, I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to take part in that, but I know it's necessary if I'm going to be a leader, if I'm going to be a spouse, if I'm going to be a parent, whatever the case
Yeah.
might be. It's necessary, but you know, I don't have to be that good at it because, I had this experience back when I was 13 and it scarred me for life. I was told then it scarred me for life. So I've allowed it to scar me for life,
Just the way I am.
just the way I am. And people are just going to have to live with me that way. And that's the way
Yep.
it is.
Yep.
You
That's
know,
pride.
of course it is. And we do it we do it in micro ways and we do it in ways that have everybody else constantly rolling their eyes at us. And whether we are aware of it or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
um, to have the genuine, bona fide chicken fried authenticity in our relationships, we've got to do that with ourselves, and we got to be
Yep.
honest to say, I kind of suck at this one thing or these three things, or when it comes to being transparent with my emotions, I'm not. I'm not accustomed to that. I'm uncomfortable with it. Say that to someone that matters
Yeah.
and watch what happens.
Yep.
Because that kind of painful transparency says something about your willingness to contribute to the other person, and they'll meet you there.
Hmm.
They'll meet you where you are instead of you having to be something that you're not, or try to pretend you're something that you're not, or convince yourself and others you're something that you're not.
Yep. Oh, that's so good. Absolutely spot on. And then that goes right back to this is what it means to be authentic.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the truth about ourselves and to ourselves and to others.
it's not always pretty.
It is not always pretty, for sure. Well, this is a great topic. We may break into this a little bit more again. Um, but if you're wondering, what do I do? And you live in Texas, you need to look up Kyle. And it's Kyle Hargrove, LPC. at gmail.com. Is that right?
That's right.
Yay. So, yeah, Kyle Hargrove, Kyle with a K, by the way. You'll see it in the description of the episode of the podcast. So be sure to check that, send him an email, get set up, and let's move forward. And let's all be making a greater impact in our relationships with God, ourselves, and others. Be sure to check out the next episode. You'll learn something about how to deal with conflict. Have a great rest of your day.